Roll Tide, everyone, and welcome to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Thompson Tractor. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by Kira Goldstein for what is a championship edition of Tide TV This Week.
Yes, the Tide rolled to their 18th national championship, and it was a beautiful night in Miami for the 2021 College Football Playoff National Championship at Hard Rock Stadium.
Well, the Crimson Tide pick up the national championship. It was a close game early on. Najee Harris punched it in from 1 yard out with 8:07 to go as the score was tied at 7 after the opening quarter. That would change in the second as the Crimson Tide exploded for 28 points, including 3 touchdowns from Devontae Smith. The first from 5 yards out made it 14-7. After the Buckeyes tied the game at 14, it was Najee Harris setting the SEC single-season touchdown record with 29 on this beautiful play. Had the Ohio State defense totally confused. The 26-yard touchdown pass from Mac Jones made it 21-14 Bama. Then Devontae Smith showed why he's the best player in college football. His change of direction before the snap, that was all the separation he needed as he took the Mac Jones pass in for the 5-yard touchdown. Then just a little over a minute later, Smith scored his 3rd touchdown of the second quarter. This one from 42 yards out gave Alabama the 35-17 lead at the half. The 35 first-half points are the most scored by the Crimson Tide in the first half of a postseason game in Alabama history.
After that 35-17 halftime lead, Alabama outscored Ohio State 17-7 to finish the game. And it was Will Reichard who remained perfect on the year with this 20-yard field goal to make it 38-17. Reichard was a perfect 14 of 14 on field goals and connected on all 84 of his extra point kicks. After an Ohio State touchdown, there was a career first for one of the Crimson Tide. Slade Bolden took the 5-yard pass from Jones and dove into the end zone for his first ever career touchdown. What a way to score your first touchdown. The Bolden diving score made it 45-24, and Najee Harris would add one more in the 4th as the Tide dominated the Ohio State Buckeyes for their 18th national championship, 52-24 in Miami.
You know, a lot of guys, played not absolutely 100% because we were pretty beat up, but showed a lot of guts and a lot of grit out there in terms of the way they competed and the way they performed. I think it was a fantastic offensive performance by Mac and Smitty and the whole group. The offensive line has done a great job all year long, so really just can't say enough and can't really put it into words in terms of how proud I am of this group, this team, because they are the ultimate team.
Devontae Smith was the game's offensive MVP after setting the championship game records for the most receptions of 12 and receiving touchdowns at 3, while accounting for 215 receiving yards, all of which came in the first half. Mac Jones threw for a college football playoff championship game record 464 yards, completing 36 of 45 passes, including a college football playoff championship game record tying 5 touchdowns. Najee Harris became just the 5th player to score both rushing and receiving touchdowns in a BCS or CFP championship game, with 2 on the ground and 1 through the air. He totaled 158 yards of total offense, including 79 yards rushing and 79 yards receiving.
Christian Barmore was named the defensive MVP after totaling 5 tackles, a sack, and 2 tackles for a loss as he terrorized the Ohio State offense all night. Alabama outgained Ohio State 621 yards to just 341 and held the Buckeyes to just 7 second-half points.
It's been a historical season for the Crimson Tide. Alabama won its 18th national championship with a 52-24 win over Ohio State on Monday night. That makes 6 national championships for the Crimson Tide in 12 seasons. This year's Tide finished the season undefeated at 13-0. They're just the second of Coach Saban's 6 national championship teams to go undefeated. Coach Saban also won his 7th national championship as a head coach, moving him past Coach Bryant for the most in college football history.
Alabama averaged 48.5 points per game this season, the most in SEC history. The Tide won 12 of 13 games by 15 points or more, including both college football playoff games, as the Tide had a margin of victory of 29.1 points per game, the most for a Crimson Tide team under Coach Saban. So is this the greatest Alabama team ever? How about the greatest college football team of all time? Let's hear what Coach Saban and the players had to say.
Well, to me, this team accomplished more almost than any team. No disrespect to any other teams that we had or any championship teams. but this team won 11 SEC games. No other team has done that.
I mean, I think we're the best team to ever play. I mean, there's no team that will ever play SEC schedule like that again, but at the same time, we're just so happy to have won this game and kind of put the icing on the cake.
Played 13 games and went undefeated. With all the disruptions that we had in this season, I think there's quite a bit to write about when it comes to the legacy of a team.
I'm not going to argue with them. They're the first team to ever go 11-0 in the SEC. And then consider this. The Tide beat the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 13th ranked teams in the final Associated Press Bowl by a combined score of 228 to 132. Now, that's pretty impressive.
An impressive season on the field, and it showed when the awards were handed out this season. Along with the All-Americans and all SEC accolades, the Crimson Tide received 17 national awards and 5 SEC individual awards.
Certainly love seeing that. We'll take a look at those awards when we return, and stay with us because we'll let you know which Alabama players are declaring for the upcoming NFL Draft next, right here on Tide TV This Week.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Thompson Tractor.
What a year it's been for the Crimson Tide. Alabama dominated on the field, and they also dominated the awards.
Mac Jones won the Davey O'Brien Award, presented annually to the nation's best college quarterback. Jones finished the season breaking the single-season record for completion percentage with 77.4%. Jones is Alabama's first ever winner of the Davey O'Brien Award.
Landon Dickerson was named this year's Remington Trophy recipient. That honor is awarded to the most outstanding center in college football. Dickerson played 725 total snaps with just 2 missed assignments, also didn't allow a sack the entire season.
Alex Leatherwood became Alabama's 6th Outland Trophy winner, presented annually to the top interior lineman or on offense or defense, as he allowed just 2 sacks while missing only 2 assignments in his 746 snaps.
Najee Harris captured the 2020 Doak Walker Award, presented annually to the nation's premier running back for his accomplishments on the field, achievement in the classroom, and citizenship in the community. Harris led the nation in total touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, and scoring, and became Alabama's all-time leader in total touchdowns this season.
Thomas Fletcher won the 2020 Patrick Manley Award, presented to the overall best long snapper at the Division I FBS level. Fletcher started every game of his Alabama career and was perfect on all snapping duties in his 4-year career.
Devontae Smith was the winner of this year's Biletnikoff Award for the top pass catcher in college football. Smith led the nation in receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and all-purpose yards. Also for Devontae Smith, he was named the Maxwell Award winner, and that honor is presented annually to the top player in college football. Smith now owns the single-season SEC receiving yards and receiving touchdown records.
How many awards can Devontae Smith win? I guess all of them. He was also named the Walter Camp Player of the Year, awarded annually to the top player in college football.
And of course, Devontae won the Heisman Trophy, becoming the Crimson Tide's 3rd Heisman Trophy winner in school history and the first wide receiver to win the award since 1991. Coach Saban was named the Paul Bear Bryant Coach of the Year. Surprisingly, this is the first time he's won the award as the head coach of the Crimson Tide. He had previously won it in 2003 as head coach of LSU. The award recognizes the country's top college football coach for his contributions both on and off the field.
Along with winning championships, Coach Saban has also been very good at helping his players become first-round NFL draft picks. Coach Saban has had 31 players drafted in the first round since he has become the head coach of the Crimson Tide, including 15 in the past 4 years.
I'm sure there are going to be several more to add to that list after this year. To find out who some of those first-round draft picks will be this season, let's see who announced their decision on Thursday to enter the 2021 NFL Draft.
Every year about this time, we have some guys that have made significant contribution to the program, had great careers here, been great ambassadors for the University of Alabama and how they've represented the program, that make a decision about their future. And, we want all players here to make the decision about their future based on business and what is the best business decision for them.
Since I was a kid, my lifelong dream was to play in the NFL. And with much thought and consideration with my family and prayer, I'm announcing that I'm declaring for the 2021 NFL Draft.
After sitting down with my family and talking to my coaches, I've decided to enter the 2021 NFL Draft.
This was a very difficult decision for me because I love my brothers, the fans, and I love playing football at Alabama. But at the send-down with my family and talking to my coaches, I had decided to enter the 2021 draft.
It's just been a great journey. It's been a dream of mine to play in the NFL. And without further ado, I would just like to announce that I'm declaring for the NFL draft. And there's a lot of work to be done. And like I said, I can't thank enough people. And I'm always thankful for Alabama. Roll Tide.
We're really proud of each one of these guys, and they're always going to be a part of the University of Alabama and the program here. And we're going to be here to help them with all future endeavors and everything that they try to do. And we wish them very much success and luck in the future in whatever decision that they make.
Welcome back. Now let's take a look at our Crimson Tide in the NFL Players of the Week, brought to you by BBVA.
It was wild card weekend in the NFL, and the Tide had several players still in action. We don't have any tweets this week, but we still have a couple of players of the week for you.
Well, Cam Sims broke out with a huge game for the Washington football team. Sims led Washington with 7 receptions for 104 yards. It was the most receptions in a single game for Sims, and the 104 yards were just 6 short of his career high.
And Deron Payne had a big game for Washington on defense. Payne totaled 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hurries, and a forced fumble against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You know who else has had a big week, Kira? The Alabama men's basketball team.
Yes, they have.
Over 4 days, the Tide had 2 huge road wins, one at Auburn and also one against Kentucky at Rupp Arena. Auburn was energized on Saturday with the return of Sharif Cooper as he made his first appearance of the season. After a couple of free throws, freshman Josh Primo scored 14 straight for the Crimson Tide, including 4 three-pointers to give Bama the 16-12 lead. The Tide extended their lead to 10 on multiple occasions, but held on to just a 1-point lead at the half, 37-36. In the second half, Alabama led by 8 with 6:27 to go, but the Tigers went on a 10-0 run to claim the lead at 84-82 with 4:43 remaining. There were a couple of ties and lead changes down the stretch, but Alabama held Auburn scoreless for the final 2:17 as the Tide scored 5 to close out the game and defeat the Auburn Tigers down on the Plains 94-90. The win was the first for the Tide at Auburn Arena since 2015. It was also the Tide's 1,700th win in program history, making them just the 3rd SEC team and 34th team in NCAA history to accomplish the feat.
Winners of 5 in a row, Alabama looked to keep that momentum going in Lexington against the Kentucky Wildcats. With the Tide at 4-0 and Kentucky at 3-0, it was a battle for first place in the SEC and Rupp Arena. Alabama jumped out to a 10-4 lead within the first 4 minutes, but the Wildcats came right back to cut the Tide's lead to 12-10 with 14:41 to go in the opening half. Leading by a single point, 23-22, with 8:27 to go before the half, the Crimson Tide used a 13-1 run to take a 13-point lead at 36-23 as Bama led by 12 at the half, 42-30.
Alabama began the second half with an 11-6 run to pull away from Kentucky with a 53-36 lead at the 15-minute mark. The Wildcats managed a quick 7-1 spurt to cut the Tide's lead to 54-43 with 12:38 to go. That's as close as Kentucky would come, as Alabama went on a 13-4 run to take its largest lead of the game at 20, 67-47 with just over 7 minutes remaining. Despite losing Herb Jones and Jordan Bruder to injuries, it was an impressive performance by the Tide as they defeated the Wildcats by that 20-point margin, 85-65. The win not only snapped an 8-game losing streak in Rupp Arena for the Crimson Tide, but it also was the largest win by an Alabama team in Lexington since winning by 23 points in 1974. The 20-point win was also Kentucky's largest home defeat for head coach John Calipari at Rupp Arena.
It is big. I mean, we're 5-0. We're first place in the league. Our guys, we had a tough first 6 games. We still got to play Arkansas Saturday, but our first 6 games, I thought were as tough as anybody in the league. So to be sitting 5-0 really speaks to the character of these guys and the seniors we've got and the leadership that we're getting and just everybody in this team.
Well, the Alabama women's basketball team look to continue their hot start to the season as well as the Tide travel to Vanderbilt on Sunday. We'll have the highlights of that matchup coming up next. The Alabama women's basketball team began the season with a perfect 7-0 non-conference record and 2-1 in the SEC with the Tide's lone loss at 4th-ranked South Carolina.
Looking to build on that impressive start, Coach Curry's squad traveled to Nashville this past Sunday to take on the 4-1 Vanderbilt Commodores.
Vanderbilt opened the game with a 9-7 lead, but the Tide closed out the first quarter strong with a 16-2 run to take the 23-11 lead after one quarter. Alabama continued their strong performance in the second quarter, leading by as many as 21 as they took the 43-26 lead into the locker room at the half. Alabama led by as many as 29 in the second half as the Tide cruised to an 80-56 win over the Commodores in Nashville. Jasmine Walker led all scorers with 25 points as she connected on 5 of 9 from beyond the arc as the Tide improved to 10-1 overall and 3-1 in SEC play.
The Alabama Gymnastics team opened their season this past Friday night as the Tide hosted the Kentucky Wildcats in Coleman Coliseum. Sitting 0.25 points behind the Wildcats after the first 3 rotations, Alonza Clough got the Tide off to a strong start on floor exercise with a 9.85. Then Sania Mitchell went second for the Tide. In her 3rd year with the Crimson Tide, this would be the first time that Mitchell, who grew up coming to Alabama meets and dreaming of one day competing for the Tide, accomplished just that, scoring a 9.85 and bringing her teammates screaming and cheering to the floor and the crowd to its feet. Her childhood dream became a reality.
As if that wasn't enough of a feel-good story, Griffin James was up next. James was back on the floor exercise mat less than a year after she was carried off of it with a season-ending Achilles injury that could have been career-ending. Soaring through her routine, James showed no fear, scoring a career-best 9.9 from the judges, pushing Alabama to a floor score of 49.275 and sealing its win over the Wildcats 196.850 to 195.825.
Don't go anywhere. We'll have our plays and players of the week coming up in just 90 seconds right here on Tide TV This Week.
Looks wide open, left side. Najee out of the backfield, makes the grab at the 10. Cuts inside the defense. He'll fire forward. He's got a touchdown. Mack looks long. Mack finds Devontae behind the defense. He is in for a touchdown. Thank you, Mr. Heisman. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien and Unitas Award winner. What a combination.
Welcome back. Those were our ATI Plays of the Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Payless Drugs.
He broke numerous records this season. He won the Heisman Trophy and about 10 other awards and was completely unstoppable all season long.
Devontae Smith rewrote the Alabama and SEC receiving records this season and ended the season with a record-breaking performance in the national championship game. Devontae was named the National Championship Offensive MVP as he finished the game with the most receptions ever in a national championship game with 12 and most receiving yards with 215. Did all of that in the first half.
And quarterback Mac Jones had a national championship record-breaking performance as well. Mac threw for a championship game record 464 yards, completing 36 of 45, and a championship game record-tying 5 touchdown passes. And those are our Payless Drugs Players of the Week. A great week for Alabama athletics.
Certainly was. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Tide TV This Week.
We'll see you next week. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield IMG College.